A few months ago, I almost signed up with one of these companies to test my DNA for my history, my heritage, any predicted relationships, percentage DNA shared with other people, and all sorts of other information and subset information that these companies provide. But I didn't do that. And I sort of sat on it for a few months, thinking to myself that did I really want my DNA to be floating around in someone else's database? And the short answer to that question was no, I didn't really like the idea of my DNA floating around in someone else's database. And just a couple of days ago, I realized that there's been a data breach in one of these major companies, actually last year in October 23. And there's now been an investigation launched, which I'm going to talk about in this video. So this is a blog post talking about 23andMe and what happened as a security breach with their company. So in early October last year, they realized that a threat actor, as in a bad actor, somebody behaving nefariously, accessed the individual accounts on 23andme.com. Now, it was only a teeny tiny percentage of their accounts, 0.1%, but that still amounted to 14,000 user accounts, as it says here. And the information that they gathered was not necessarily the DNA itself, but lots of bits of information that is linked to that DNA, such as the DNA relatives profile and all of the tree information that is linked to that, the family tree profiles, each of which connected to the compromised accounts. And that amounted to approximately 5.5 million DNA relatives profiles and 1.4 million of this family tree feature profiles. Now, there's another page that talks about what information is included in that, which is shared here. Your birth year, profile pictures, links to family tree, and all of this sort of stuff. Your predicted relationship and percentage DNA shared with your matches. And so this blog article talks about how this happened, and that's what I'm going to talk about in this video a little bit more, so you can better protect yourself. Because to be fair to 23andMe, whilst I think they could have done a lot more to protect the security of those accounts, there was another step which you, the user, if you were affected by this, and there were 14,000 people whose user accounts were affected, and millions of people that were indirectly affected by this breach, could have done to prevent this. Now, the way that they did this is called credential stuffing. Now, all that means is that when someone has used and reused usernames and passwords on this website, 23andme.com, and they've used them on other websites, and essentially they've reused these details, they are then potentially at risk if the information is sold on inadvertently, or is accessed inadvertently, or is otherwise compromised by other people. And the problem here is when a company with whom you share your data and information, they hold it, and let's say you don't need to use that account and profile anymore, but they retain the data, and then eventually they might get hacked and it might get sold on, and so on. And then eventually you get sold on as essentially a package of data and information. Now, the way that they access these accounts is they got hold of another hacked set of data, and they used all of that data to access these accounts on 23andme.com. Now, you might think it's perfectly ordinary to use and reuse usernames and passwords, but any security specialist will tell you that that has its own inherent risks. And obviously, that is how they manage to access these accounts. Now, one way, of course, of preventing that from happening is to use different passwords on each account and use a strong and secure password manager to ensure that that doesn't happen. Now, one of the big risks with companies having, storing, and retaining your data is that ultimately they might be sold on to other parties, or they might be hacked and then it's sold on to other parties. Now, one of the big risks of companies having, storing, and retaining your data is that very often they are sold on to other parties, known as data brokers, who will collect your information and put it together and sell you essentially as a package. Now, one solution that I have for this is a partner to my channel, which is called Incogni. Incogni is a straightforward service which will contact each of these data brokers and require that they delete your information from their servers. It's a very straightforward system. You sign up and instruct them to act on your behalf to contact these data brokers and delete your data. You'll then get access to a dashboard which will give you weekly updates as to how many requests are sent in progress, and requests that have been completed. There's a discount at the link in the description below as a partner to my channel, which will help you to remove your data from these broker companies, because many of these companies will be scooping up and gathering information together from all sorts of different sources and put you together as a package and sell you on to these data brokers, all of which may then result in your information being in the hands of bad actors trying to access accounts such as the 23andMe account or other accounts and compromising your personal security. And as I've mentioned previously, we've had clients come to us who've had loans and other contracts taken out in their names because these bad actors have had enough information about them through these various sources and data brokers to impersonate those people and take out contracts in their name. So check out Incogni. It is a fantastic service which I've used myself, which helps to remove your data from these data brokers. So coming back to this story, as I mentioned, there has been an investigation launched. And the investigation, as I read from Sky News here, which is a joint investigation by the Information Commissioner's Office, which is the UK's data protection regulator, and the Office of Privacy Commissioner of Canada. A joint investigation launched into the October 23 incident where these accounts were compromised. Now, as I said, I think 23andMe could probably have done more to protect that, and they have done since. And individuals could have done a lot more to protect their own information, such as not reusing their usernames and passwords on different websites, using and implementing two-factor authentication, which I understand 23andMe now insists on. Now, that is not an infallible system, but it is certainly much better than just username and password. Now, the UK and Canadian data protection regulators have said that they are going to combine their expertise and resources to jointly conduct this investigation because of the sensitive nature of the information contained on the 23andMe databases. They say the strength of 23andMe's safeguards to protect information, which it controls, will also be investigated, as well as whether the company provided adequate notification about the breach to the two regulators and all of the affected people. The ICO has quite rightly highlighted that this is sensitive personal information, including genetic information, which doesn't change over time. Of course, DNA and genetic information is used in a whole number of different ways, and such data can reveal information about individuals, family members, health, ethnicity, biological relationships, background and connections, and all sorts of things, making public trust in each of these services absolutely critical. So this is an investigation into this one company and many data breaches over the last months, and there are companies ready to take advantage of it, such as these data brokers. So do check out Incogni, which is a service to help to remove your information from these data brokers that may have hoovered up data from various sources and plan to sell it on as a package to other people, which ultimately might end up with your data in the hands of bad actors. We've genuinely had clients come to us who've had loans and contracts taken out in their names. They've been reported for fraud and all kinds of things when they didn't, in fact, do anything wrong. They've had people impersonating them just because other people, bad actors, have had enough information about them to impersonate them, which they've probably got from these data brokers. But you can hopefully stop that before it happens if you use Incogni to get these data brokers to remove your data. So do check that out. It's a substantial discount in the description below with my unique link. I hope you found that interesting. I will come back and report on any updates I have on this story. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.